So will I hear you? I know you won't hear. Oh, okay. But I've muted it. How do you hear me?
You need to mute your microphone.
Oh, fudge. Okay, hang on.
All right. Awesome. So we'll kick off because Mum's been on here nice and early, coming to support. So I'm Jade Binioni, and I run Coaching with Jade, and I'm going to take you through the ultimate sales, 7-step sales method. Ultimate sales. Mute yourself.
Hey, yeah.
Can you mute yourself? Can you mute yourself?
Oh,
yeah, thanks. That's better. Cool. So I can, so we're going to go through the ultimate sales step, 7-step sales method, my bad. Hey, Simone, which essentially I use to keep it real in the sales process. So I want to share this with you. Thanks for coming on, Simone. So first and foremostly, it's Sunday. This is your time. So first and foremost, I wanted to just take a moment to really thank you for coming on and taking some time out of your Sunday to be here and to look to spend time with me and going through this sales method. We all have lives, and so I really do appreciate that you've made the time to come here and vibe with me, and also invest in yourself and see what goodies you can take away. So firstly, if you're wondering why I'm on my own webinar, Mum, you need to mute yourself.
I thought I had.
This is my mum, everybody. She's just working out Zoom. There we go, Mum. Leave it like that. We've been having a chat this morning, so yeah, cool. That's muted. That's fine. So where was I? If you're wondering why my name is appearing on the participants list, my beautiful partner has kindly, joined to ensure that, sound check and the screens are working fine. So he's like my IT guy, just making sure that this is running smoothly. So don't be freaked out that I'm running it and on the webinar as well. So a bit of housekeeping, just in terms of how to use Zoom and stuff and what we'll be doing today. I'll just run through a bit of that. So there is a chat which you can access, and if you have any questions there, just pop them in the chat and I'll be watching it as we go through. Also, this is a very interactive webinar, so we both interact, so might have questions, and you'll get a lot more out of it should you interact and put your feedback forward, etc., etc. So, jump in as much as you can, and that way you'll take out a lot more. So, what else? This webinar that I'm going to be taking you through is a massive chunk of information. So I really want to, if there's questions that are specific to, your business or your niche, and they're really specific, if it's cool if I just, maybe park those and maybe we can discuss at the end, just because there is a lot to get through. Otherwise, if you have questions that are related to what we're talking about at the time, and are quite generic, then we can discuss those. But I feel like we'll be on here for 2 hours, not 1 hour, if we, go through every scenario for each individual. So in saying that, today, why are we here? So we're going to look at a structure where we can make a sale and where everyone's taken care of. So the problem with sales, right, is that there's so much uncertainty around selling. And because there's so much uncertainty, this is where, the yucky feelings, the awkward feelings can creep in. And when they do, this is where we do the avoidance strategy, and we don't, we want to avoid going near anywhere where we have to have those conversations. And so I asked the question, what would happen if you had more certainty in sales? And I mean, can you guys just practice to use the chat? No one's typed in there so far, but just answer that question. What would happen if you had more certainty when it came to selling, when it came to talking about your product, your brand, your service, what would happen if you had loads more certainty? Just drop me something. What would happen for you? Yeah, definitely. More sales. Definitely, Simone. Cool. All right. So this is definitely what this webinar is about. It's obviously in the next hour, you're probably not going to create sales because you won't be talking to anybody. However, the idea is at least you would be okay about the concept of selling. And I trust that would be dope. I trust that would be something that would be useful either for growing your business or for, taking your career in sales to the next step. So really how I want you guys to be seeing this content over the next hour is through the filter of what is the system. So if we can park the nitty gritty and wondering how this is actually implemented, because this, as I said before, this is a huge concept and a huge piece. I've been learning it over 6 months, but I really wanted to introduce you guys to the structure and the method that's used. So really see it through the filter of what is the system and how can it be applied to my business or my sales career. And ultimately, how can this specifically reduce uncertainty so that I can get paid what I'm bloody worth, right? So keep that in mind as we go through. Now, just jumping onto the next point, I really wanted to go through and explain why I do what I do and why I'm doing this webinar today. So in a business, we need to have the following things: vision, mission, and values. And I wanted to take you through mine so that it makes sense as to why I'm sharing this content. So for me, I have a vision of everything is possible. And if it seems impossible, how do I get over, around, under, straight through that thing? And there's a quote there: where there's a will, there's a way. And this is by no one famous, we usually put quotes up there by famous people. However, this one comes from my IT guy that's tuned in here, my beautiful partner, Maruto. When he first said this, I was like, where there's a will, there's a way. Don't you mean where there's a will, there's a way? That's the saying. And he said, no, that's what I mean. And I thought, oh, that sounds a bit fobbish. If you don't know what that means, it's a bit of a joke. But I thought he was saying it wrong. And the more I heard it, the more it came apparent to me that, well, where there is a world with, technology, where there once was no technology, no such thing, right? If there is a world, there is a way, meaning at some stage there wasn't, and now there was. And where there's human, where there's minds that have visions, that have creativity, and that have a passion to do so, there is a way, and we will find it. And so that's really my vision. Mission. This is all about, creating strategies and structures like what I'm going to share with you today about how to break through any barriers to create the extraordinary, right? To wow ourselves, to, amaze ourselves in the work, to be our own inspiration, right? So that's my mission really, is to do that for myself and to help others do that. Values. To be able to go on a mission such as this and hold a vision such as this, to create something, that may not be here, but to bring it into light, that takes resilience, okay? So that takes the ability to fall down, get the fuck back up, and keep at it. It takes resilience. Another one of my core values is really to keep it real. Not keep it real for what other people want. Keep it real to yourself, what's happening inside, and what fits with you. Knowing what drives you, knowing what you want, and keep it real to that. Growth. Growth is a value that, I believe for myself, I have to be hungry to grow, because it is through this doing and growing that this vision and the mission will keep going and keep unfolding. What else? Vision. Well, you have to have a strong vision, and that's actually one of my values, right? So To know where you're going. Yes, to appreciate where we've come from, but essentially to have a blueprint of where you're going and to be excited about that. And finally, last but not least, is a value that really sticks with me is ecology. And if you're unfamiliar with that word, essentially it means to ensure that everything that I'm doing, everything that the clients and the people that I'm talking to and I'm working with, okay, have a sense of ecology and how they go about things. So ensuring that it's right for me, right for other people, and right for the world, okay? So it does no harm, essentially, to anybody. All right, so I trust that this sort of makes sense as to a little bit about how I'm set up to do the things that I do and as to why I'm sharing this webinar. Now, if I may, if it's cool, I'll just go into a little bit about me, just to give you a bit of background, because I have spoken to some of you on this call briefly. Well, my mum, she's on the call. She's known me she's known me before me. But yeah, I really wanted to take some time. I can see Dave was on the call. Thanks for joining, Dave, and Simone. As I said, we've spoken briefly, but I really wanted to, so that it gives this webinar context, just to give you a little bit about where I've come from, if that would be all right. So, Mum, please mute yourself again. I can hear you. So this is my journey on one A4 piece of paper. So I will try and do it justice. Now, on the left-hand side, you'll see some brands and some logos at the top there, and a few other pictures. So let me take you through this. Let me take you through this journey. So in the top left, you can see some very well-known brands: Telstra, Commonwealth Bank, Village Cinemas. This is where, essentially, when I moved to Australia 10 years ago, this is where my journey began, in these companies. So I began at Telstra, moved on to Commonwealth Bank, and ended up at Village Cinemas. And inside of these companies, my roles were around sales, either selling myself or, doing the selling myself, should I say, or leading teams, coaching and developing other people in teams to sell. Okay, so it was either me doing the selling or me coaching and developing others on how to sell. Predominantly, this was in a call center base. And so during my time there, a couple of things became apparent. Hey, Bo, thanks for joining. A couple of things became apparent was that, companies had parameters to work within, right? So in call centers, the biggest parameter is around no, that's cool, Bo. Thank you so much for giving up some time on your Sunday to be here and investing in you. So two things were apparent. One, companies had parameters, they had KPIs, they had targets that they had to make naturally. That's why they're in business. And what I noticed is that I didn't fit so well into how those parameters worked. So, when you have a talk time of, say, 5 minutes and you needed to have a conversation, make a sale, and close it within 5 minutes, right? That was a problem for me. It really didn't fit with me, but I was really good at, spending 5 minutes really getting to know that person. And so I would just take 10 minutes to do what I needed to do. But that was one thing. There was a couple of things, was that I noticed that businesses had parameters and KPIs, and I just knew I didn't fit inside them. I wasn't always, I wasn't always a salesperson, like one that enjoyed it, right? So I'll go into that in a little bit more detail to give you context. But I like the aspect of connecting with people and really getting to know them. And yes, I did have good sales results as to why I was able to be in positions where I could teach others. However, just over time, I knew, and something resonated with me, that it wasn't a fit as to how the process was to sell. Now, moving down into the bottom left photo, you're probably wondering why there is a monkey included in the slideshow. So the bottom left-hand side and the one in the middle is when I started to, when the feelings of unease came up about how it was in corporate companies and how they, you know, operated in terms of selling. This is where I started to branch out and do a little bit of research for myself about how can I do something outside of this. And the bottom left-hand photo and the one in the middle is me jumping into network marketing. And I did network marketing for about 2 years. And, you know, I loved it. I loved the connecting with people. Again, the bottom left-hand photo that was my first ever in-home presentation, and nobody turned up. One, actually, but she was there, you know, one of my best friends. Nobody turned up to that presentation, and I did the full hour presentation as if there were 100 people in the room. And, you know, kindly Monkey and Bulldog came out, and, you know, they were quite competitive, couldn't shut them up. But, you know, I still carried on and did it anyway. But that, you know, all of these experiences from working with, you know, in these companies and thanks, Bo. Yeah, so working in these companies where it wasn't a fit as to how sales were done, you know, having experiences where, you know, I'm attempting to help people and no one turns up, you know, over time I created certain beliefs or a certain view on sales. And it was one of that I wasn't comfortable and I was actually scared. So that, you know, moving into this space where I got I'm doing the mouse on the other side of the computer, hello. So moving into this space where you can see me presenting to a crowd of, I think it was about 50 people down in St. Kilda for, you know, for this network marketing company I was involved in. And, you know, again, the connection, I was all about the connection, but when it came to selling, right, I still had the hang-ups that I had been collecting throughout my whole career around sales. And as a result, you know, I didn't do too well in my network marketing business. I didn't do as well as you know, other people were doing for that amount of time. And it was just because, you know, when it came to making the sale, I wasn't comfortable. And, you know, even though I was out there doing a lot of connecting, you know, if they weren't able to buy that particular product, then what? Would I stop talking to them? You know, there was just a huge gap in between what I was doing and how I wanted it to be. And so this takes me into explaining to you about this symbol here for the Coaching Institute. So just over a year ago, I enrolled into a course to become a coach. Now, predominantly, it's around life coaching, and the Coaching Institute is based in Melbourne, and is the top coaching schools in Australia. And so I was a part of this, really just finding my way. And what I loved about it, even though I did love network marketing, what I loved about the Coaching Institute is that wherever anyone wanted to be helped, it didn't just have to be specific to one product, but wherever they wanted to be assisted to grow and to get some help in, I could help through these coaching resources and these different codes. And so that really lit me up and I started to get excited. However, to create a coaching business, you still need to sell. You still need to have the ability to get out there, connect, talk to people and sell. And so 6 months through that journey, I realized that I had to do something about this. Now, as wonderful as the universe works, the man in the bottom right-hand corner in this photo here, Caleb Lesser, the founder of Authentic Influence, reached out to him one day. As the universe works, I just happened to have a free weekend. My partner was going to Sydney, and I had a free weekend. He was holding a workshop, and needed some help. So I said, sure, why not? Before I stepped in that room, I had no idea what I was going to be learning. But, he seemed cool, so I went along to give him a hand. As the days unfolded, it was a 2-day training. As the days unfolded, I was more and more wowed by what I was learning. So what this room was, it was a sales training, very similar to what I'm taking you through now. In fact, the methods and the codes that I'm going to teach you derive and have been taught to me by this guy here, right? He's a Kiwi also. Go the Kiwis. We always tell these jokes in our webinars with him, so I thought I'd drop one here. It's not the only reason that attracted me to work with him. But yeah, so in this training, I had no idea, but I sat down. Troy say, bro, that's it. You got it, Dave. So day one of that training was all about looking at sales. And honestly, all the feelings that, had been brewing since 8 years ago when I started these jobs, all the experiences that I had moving through network marketing, all started to come out and bubble up in this first day of the training with Caleb. And I was like, what we got asked questions like, what does sales mean to you? And I'm like, yuck, no, it's sticky, icky, right? And by day two, it was safe to say my perception of sales was changed. It wasn't after, it's not like after day two was I any better at selling. There was still a lot of work that was needed to be done, right? However, what had happened is that as a result of being in the room for 2 days, I learned a new perspective. And that perspective allowed me to switch my focus from 8 years worth of evidence and feeling, right, to a new way. And so this is really what I want to take you through today, is to show you take you through, the old way of selling versus a new modern way, the way that I was introduced to, and after 8 years was able to change my perspective. And on top of that, to take you through the actual structure. So that's enough rambling about me, and let's hit into looking at this old way of selling versus this new modern way, right? The one that helped reshape my perspective on sales. So if we look at the old way of selling, okay, in my experience, I can liken it to the call center, where you've got 5 to 10 minutes to say hello, build rapport, make a connection, laugh, and then make a sale, right? Very, just what do you need to buy? Buy the thing, okay? It's very much take my thing. As you can see, old mate on the right, he is all about the thing. And we liken the old way of selling to, extreme examples like the pushy car salesman, okay? And so the reason why, back in the day when making a sale or in a sales interaction, there wasn't a lot of choice out there. And so a lot of the power was in the hands of the salesperson. A lot of the power was in their hands, because how long was it going to take you to wait on hold, talk to someone else, explain what you needed, right, to get the outcome that you potentially needed? Or, how far did you have to drive to another car sales yard and have a look around and do the same old dance? It took too much time. So really the power was in the salesperson's hand, say 5-10 years ago, because there wasn't so much variety. It wasn't so easy to get your hands on what you needed. And so now it's really, with the power of the internet, everything is so fast. Everything is accessible, and there is so much more variety out there that it has literally reshaped the psychology of how people buy. Because if they get pissed off with old mate on the right, they're right onto carsales.com online to go and find something alternatively. So this now will take you into what is the modern way of selling all about. So if the old way was about the pushy car salesman, the call centers, just the throwing your product at people, hoping that they will buy and having conversations around that, what could you say that the modern way of selling is all about? I want you guys to have a crack. So just jot some points down. Some of you may be familiar with this, maybe Dave, Bo, I know you are. So let's get some interaction going and tell me, what could this modern way of selling be all about? Relationship building, absolutely. Key. Awesome. Value. Yes, Bo. Cool. Mum? Anything? Taking a journey together to solve some problems. Bingo. Absolutely. Cool. Helping people. Absolutely. And so what we're going to go through is exactly how in this model and in this method we do that. We help people, how exactly we take this journey together. So let's unfold this. The modern way of selling is all about solving our buyers' problems. Okay, so like Dave said, bingo. People want the trusted advisor. They don't want the pushy car salesman anymore. Out with him, in with this. People want to be able to trust you. And the modern way of selling is all about being into people. All right. If those of you that also follow my mentor, Caleb, this is his message and his mission, right? Oh, awesome, Mum. Cool. Tell me what you think. So people, you need to be into people, and we'll unpack this a lot more. And the modern way of selling is more so about understanding and respecting how the balance of power has shifted from the hands of the salesperson to the hands of the consumer or the buyer. Okay, so we really need to understand that now, that we can't just push things down their throat and know that they will take it because it's too hard to go somewhere else. They'll turn around and you'll be in the win as fast as you can blink, okay, because there's so much more variety. Yes, Mum, it's about sharing, learning, and getting creative. Perfect, and this fits with this model. So thanks to the internet, we need to understand how the balance of power has shifted, right? So let's jump into this a little bit more. What is a problem, okay? And I'm just keeping an eye on the time, and I want to be respectful of the time as well. So, I want to get through this as quick as I can for you guys. And guys, you're really starting, what I can tell from your comments is you're really getting the structure and flowing along nicely. So, would it be cool later if you are wanting to dig into this deeper, because we may not be able to in this space of time, if it's cool later, we explore how we can potentially continue this conversation afterwards. If that's cool, then just give me a yep. So that way I know that, I can do the code justice and run through it all for you. And if any of you need to be taken care of individually or you want to look into this deeper, then we can do so. So just let me know if that's cool. And we shall move on. Awesome. Cool, Simone. Thank you. So what is a problem? Well, a problem consists between a discord or an imbalance between 2 points. And those 2 points are, as you can see on the screen, now and in the future. So when there is a discord and imbalance between 2 points, now and future, that is where there is a problem. So let me break this down even further, get all the things up on the screen. So people will experience their reality of now. And if their reality of now, what they are seeing right now, in this moment, differs to their future expectation of how they want it to be, if those 2 points are different, that creates a discord, therefore it creates a problem for that person. Because now they're looking to how to make it more like their future expectation. You feel me? Following? And how do people experience their reality of now? How do people experience and envision their future expectation? Well, they do so through 2 ways. They experience it internally, right? So they look at their reality of now and they experience it from an internal perspective, and they also experience it from an external perspective. What that means is They experience the reality of now both from an emotional perspective and a logical perspective. So just to give you an example of a very simple problem is, over here, my reality of now is I don't have a car. I'm walking everywhere. My future expectation is I need a car, so I'm not walking everywhere. Okay? The internal experience of now is that I'm frustrated that I'm walking everywhere. So it's the frustration, it's the feeling. The external experience of now not having a car is not having the physical car, having to physically walk everywhere. Okay? And again, the future expectation of having a car will be the feeling of ease, the internal feeling of ease, and the future expectation, the external experience will be, I have a car, it's faster to get from A to B. Okay? So I trust that's landing. Now, what this is called in psychology is a cognitive dissonance. So cognitive dissonance is the imbalance between 2 points. Okay, and in this sense, for this method for sales, it's the 2 points, 2 different points in time. So is everyone cool with what a problem is? Does that make sense? Any questions? Cool, awesome. Let's rock on. So before I take you into the method, I want to point this out. Now, we've just explored what a problem is, okay? Now I want you to look at this triangle. Let's just look at how many people are not aware of any problem that they may be experiencing. Just look at that triangle. At the top, under buying now, that little triangle represents 3% of the market. Okay, 3% of people are buying now. They know they have a problem. They know they need a solution. They pretty much know what the solution is. They're ready to buy. First one that comes along or has the conversation with them, done deal. Okay. In the next quadrant down, the information gathering, this represents 17 people. Exactly, most are unaware or vague about it. That's right. Information gathering phase, 17% of people are in this process where they're aware that they've got a problem and they're just Google searching at the moment. They're not really buying, okay? Potentially through a conversation, they may have more of a need, but at this stage, they're just researching. They're just talking to people. They're not really actively buying. The next section down represents 20% of the market. And this is where people are aware that they have a problem, but they're not willing to do anything about it at this stage, okay? Even though they honestly, openly know that they have a problem, they're not looking to solve it, okay? And the bottom half, which represents 50%, is people that are not aware that they have a problem to solve. So that's a huge piece. That is a huge piece. So if we're adapting the, as my mentor says, the throwing shit at the wall and seeing what sticks, well, it's sticking to 3%, because 3% absolutely know that they need to buy something, and it might just be that your product, your service has the means to solve it. 3%. So would it be like so freaking valuable if we can unpack how you can start talking to these people? Would that be cool? No? Oh, shit, yeah. Dave, I love it. Yeah, absolutely. So that we can start to open up our market, because 3% is going to take a long time to grow anything if we're working with 3% of people. Awesome. Let's move into, let me introduce you and move us into looking at the 7-step sales method, which we call consult. So this is the ultimate 7-step sales process that I have used in my business, and that I have been implementing, learning, and learning on newer levels each time and every time through implementation. This method consult, it derives from authentic influence from Caleb Lesser, and it really is the fusion of human behavior and sales. Okay, and as I said, I'm in a position now where I have been solidly using this for about 6 to 7 months. And what I'm wanting to do is to open up for other people how they can use this in their business, because as you saw in my very first slides, I was not about sales, right? I was so far not about sales. And my perspective shifted. So if in doing this webinar, we can shift your perspective, I'm happy, right? And if you want to further that, as I said, we can look into how we can do that further. But if I can help you shift your perception on sales, awesome. That would be cool. So the catchphrase that I've made up for this is, before having a sales conversation, remember to consult. All right? And now I'm going to run you through the 7-step process. So first, let me just have a big glass of water because I get quite, passionate about this slide. So C, step 1, check in with your client. In my language, it means, at this stage, you've probably had a conversation with somebody new, say a prospect or a lead, and you most likely, or ideally at this stage, you haven't gone into what you can do for them, okay? So just keep that in mind as we move through. But at this stage, you've just made a connection, okay? And at this stage, using this method, at this stage, we need to build a rapport and connection. Those are pretty basic and simple things when it comes to sales, but we need to genuinely be into people. Okay, and this was my hang up about working in the corporate sales world, is that genuinely being into people didn't really have a space. We didn't have a space for that there. Okay, so in this space though, with this method, there's absolutely 100% necessity. It is vital that we be into people. In fact, I'm going to go as far as to say, if you cannot commit to this first step, right, then don't continue with the model. I'm going to say that. Turn around, stop talking to the person, or, do that person a favor and don't continue, because to execute this method well, you need to do all of the steps, including this one. It's like going and baking a cake, and step 1 says preheat the oven, and then you mix the flour and do all of that, right? If you get to the end where you've put it all in the cake tin and you've missed step number 1, you're fucked. You can't bake the cake. And exactly the same with this method. If you don't commit to being genuinely into people, to genuinely give a shit about people, don't even begin. So am I cool? Was that too much? Was that a bit passionate, or is that fair to say? Yay. Awesome. Thank you, Dave. So C is all about checking in with your client. You haven't talked about the sales. You haven't talked about what you can do. And in step number 1, we really want to drop any preconceptions about what the client may or may think about you in this conversation. Drop it. It's gone. We need to drop the need to have our product and service in our mind. Okay? Yes, we are good at what we do, potentially. Most likely. Yes, we have a really great product and service. But at this stage in the method, it's not about that. We park, we drop, we throw out any preconceptions and any need to hold on to what we do and how good we are. And next step from here is beginning to move into the sales conversation. And we do this through asking for permission to do so. So whether that be we ask for permission to explore their problem or their situation further, or whatever it may be. But what I see most times happening, and what I used to do religiously, was just, as soon as I had someone new to talk to and we were kicking off, and we had a bit of rapport going, boom, into what I do, into what, what I've got. okay? Ask permission, that's the key. So moving on to this next step. Now, before I even go into this, this piece alone is a 5-day training. Okay, so this is a huge piece, and I'm going to explain it in 5 minutes. So, there is a purpose as to why I'm explaining it and why it's relevant for you to understand how necessary it is in terms of the consult method. So, DISC is a behavioral. It's essentially explaining the behavioral flexibility that we each have. Okay, and so in DISC, we have 4 energy types, DISC, and I'm going to run through these for you. So let me just pull up these cool little guys. And if you've heard of this, I don't know, Dave, Bo, I know you've heard of this. Dave, I'm not too sure if you've done DISC before, but I'm really going to be speaking on it from a non-coaching perspective because I'm respectful that there are non-coaches on the call. And I really just want to explain this, in a way that everyone can understand this. So with these, let's go back too much. So with these energies, as we go around, I'm going to tell you and give you, go for it, loving you, cool, awesome. So for each of these archetypes, I'm going to run through what they stand for from a code perspective and then give you some metaphors as to how you can hold them in your mind and think of their archetypes in a certain way. So D is for the dominant, right? And if we look at this method or this, if we look at DISC through a metaphor of medieval times, right? So this is how I was taught it, and it was so powerful, it just stuck. If we think of the dominant, right, as in medieval times, the archetype for a dominant would be the archetype of a warrior, okay? Where, he's focused on results. He's focused on the win. It means life and death. It's that kind of passion because it's life and death. So we liken that archetype of the dominant to the warrior in medieval times. All right. The dominant is very future-based and based on results as to why these are up here. Moving on to the I, right? The I is for influence, and the archetype likened to medieval times again is the joker, the jester, the clown, right? Very, very focused on people and connection and having a good time and laughing and, finding that next laugh. Again, very future-based thinker, but driven by connection rather than results like the D energy. The S energy is not you at all. The S energy is for stability. So the archetype here in medieval times is likened to the mother or the priest, okay? Very nurturing, very emotionally intelligent, very caring, very peaceful, very trusting people, very past-based assurance thinkers. So when they think, when they imagine, they're referring to the past, okay, versus these guys where they're referring to the future. Now, the S energy, like the I energy, very, very committed to, driven by connection, okay? Then we move up to the C energy, and the C energy is for compliance. And the compliance archetype is likened to the wizard, where results, correctness, accuracy is key. So as you can see there, very results-based, results-driven, just like the D energy, however, a very past-based thinker, because they're worried about what's worked in the past and, how am I going to ensure accuracy? So compliant is for the wizard. Now, why is this even coming up in this method? Well, step number 2, after you've had a conversation with somebody, it is important that we start to have a look at which energy types they are predominantly giving out. Because if we can understand their energy type, this code, this DISC method, allows us to understand how they make buying decisions. Okay, so I trust you're loving this, digging this, give me a yeah, or whatever. But knowing these behavioral types, we can understand how they make their buying, like how they make a buying decision. And with this knowledge, it will allow you to know how to close a sale, when to close it, or if not, it will give you the means as to how you can close a sale. So let's just go with the warrior or the D energy, bringing it back to the 21st century. The D energy can be likened to your CEOs, your vision, your C-level type people, focused on results, all about the future. These guys are an automatic convincer with one criteria, which is how are you going to get me the result? If you have a conversation with a D energy and they can see that your thing will give them the result, they will buy the thing. They will give you a go on the spot, 100%, if you can show them how, if they're feeling that, right? Ooh, make sense? The I energy, right? These are the ones in the office that are, always having a laugh, always into people, and all about the team, right? And the I energy is also an automatic convincer with a different criteria though. It's all about who. Do they like you? When you're selling them your stuff, do they like you? If they like you, if they're feeling you, they'll buy your thing, right? If everyone else has what you're selling, they'll buy your thing, okay? So, because the I energy is all about connection. The S energy, the mother, priest, right? The more conservative employees or roles out there, people, and as I'm going through these, you may resonate with some of these people, either for yourself or for, colleagues or other people in your business. So the S energy, they require a period of time, okay, to make their buying decision. And so this information is useful because with this information, when somebody says to you, I just need some time to think about it, although we've left any preconceptions about us and making it about us at the start, but when someone says to you, I need time, you will generally know, if you can pick up that they're an S energy, you will know that that's a genuine thing, that they need a period of time. Usually what I do here is I will prescribe a period of time. So I'll say, awesome, well then how does it sound that I call you back in 2 days' time on Tuesday, and we can discuss anything further. They love that shit. Even if you can get really good at this and pick up what energy they are before you attempt to close, then you can suggest to them, hey, I don't want you to make a decision right now. Take some time. I'll call you back in 2 days. Have a think about it. Go through what you need to go through. And, we'll go from, you can tell me then what you think. That they will love that. And S energy loves that. Firstly, they'll be blown away that they for sure thought you were going to close them. And then what you did instead is you talked right to their to their primary energy and said, take some time. Wow, that just builds trust in itself. Again, with the C energy, they are a number of times convincer. So they require a number of follow-ups, right, to close their sale. The reason why is because they're going to go and research you. They're going to go and watch you when you're not looking. They're going to go and make sure that this buying decision is going to work and get them the results that they need. So when these guys are a bit wishy-washy and you can tell they're a C energy, it's because they need to be convinced a number of times. Okay, so follow-ups are essential for these guys. But the thing with the C energy is that once they buy, they're not leaving. And that's because why would they want to go through that whole process again when they've got something that works? So I trust that was mind-blowing. It's really powerful stuff because when you can understand the energies, you can understand how people are making their decisions. So I'm just looking at the time, guys, and it's 11:50. My dress rehearsal of this webinar was a lot shorter because I didn't have you guys on the call and interacting with questions and whatnot, or comments. So are we cool if we go a bit over, maybe say to 20 past 12 or around then? Is that okay if we go a little bit over? Cool. Awesome. Thanks, guys. Appreciate it. Simone, I know that, your day is, you do have the kids, you got plans with the kids today. So if you do, I have this recording. Otherwise, if you're happy to rock on, yep, perfect. I'll get you the recording of the webinar for sure. This is being recorded. So when you need to jump off, you do your thing. All right. So now let's look into the first step of the actual conversation. So the 2 steps before this was just all about, really connecting and making the agreement that we're going to drop any preconceptions about customer and strengthen the relationship. The second step was all about gauging their energy type. But this is where the conversation starts to begin. And so we're going to be looking into, as we described before, how a problem is made up between a gap in 2 points of time. We're going to look at how to allow the customer to fill out this full picture, so that if they weren't once aware of what a problem, what problems could be occurring for them, that they can start to map this out. And if there is a problem and if there is a gap, then the problem will become apparent, right? So this is what we're doing through step 3, is we're exploring their reality of now. And a way to ensure that, the emotional and the logical experience of now are both explored by the client is to direct our questions. So how I love to start this is, cool, so thanks for having this chat. What's going on for you right now? The what's going on for you right now is directing them to, their emotions. And if I wanted to say what's going on in your business right now, the right now is implying, tell me what's happening right now in your business, or tell me what's going on for you in your, in yourself. And this is how we start to get the conversation flowing and the customer starting to build out their cognitive dissonance. All right. So our job is to ensure that they're able to build this out well enough, because there's no use skipping and doing a half-pie job, because if we do, it affects the whole process. So when you get to the end, the result or the outcome won't be as strong as it could have if we'd done all the groundwork here. So this is about asking questions and getting them to paint an emotional picture of their reality of now, and also painting a logical picture of, what's happening in their business, their relationships, their career, their finances, whatever it is now. And this is just doing some exploring. So we're just guiding through our questions. Now, once we're confident that the customer has a good idea and a picture of what's happening for them right now, then we move into the future. And again, to ensure that, we're allowing the customer to explore their subconscious mind and their conscious mind and build out this cognitive dissonance, to the best that they can, is to direct our questions. So if they've just told us all about their reality of now and we want to move them over to the future, then we can say something like, tell me how that will affect your business in 12 months' time. So I've just taken them from here to here, the logical future. Your business, which is logical, external to them, and in 12 months' time. So taking them from now to the future. And then when we want to move up to, when they're describing the logical future for you, and they need to build out some emotion around that, then we just say something as simple as, and tell me how all of that, the growth, the growth, the ROI, tell me about how that will affect you. The you at the end of the sentence implies, tell me about you. Not anything else, but what's going on inside internally. And now, once we have done this and we have gone through and allowed the customer to explore their cognitive and create a cognitive dissonance, this is what we're looking at. A customer who came in with nothing, no emotion around the now, no logic about the future, nothing. They were just sitting down there in that 50% with nothing. They weren't aware. They're just doing life. And now in this conversation with us, with this method, they're sitting there with this happening in their mind, a clear reality of now and a clear future expectation of how they want it to be. Now, this is where most people, salespeople, this is where things go a bit south, is once the customer has this aha moment, this is what happens. Salesperson goes in and goes, yeah, I'm glad you had that aha moment, buy my thing. They sell. They take their product and they give it to the person as a resolution for what's just happened here. But we're not going to do that, okay? What the customer has done is had this. That's a rugby ball. I'm a Kiwi. I like rugby. And I thought that was pretty smart. It bounced and everything. But once we've built out this cognitive dissonance, right, the customer kicks goals because now there's a problem that they're aware of. Okay? Something that... Dave, it's not about that. So what we're saying, getting back on track. So the problem is now apparent to the customer, and they now have this problem in their mind. They have done all this work. We haven't done anything. Their subconscious mind has built out this cognitive dissonance. It's theirs, okay? This is how I say it, and I'm going to get passionate again. How dare we go and put a resolution onto something that they have done all the hard work to build out? This is not our gap to fill. Absolutely not. It's not our place to fill that gap at all, okay? So we don't offer our products at this point. What we do instead is the customer has just done all this hard work and identified a problem when they were walking around like a zombie with not knowing, unbeknownst to them, that they had a problem that they could solve that would move them to a different position in their business, in their life, or in their future, right? And we're going to go and fill that gap? Hell no. So this is what we're going to do. We're going to ask the customer how they would like to have their problem solved. How would you like to solve? And okay, so given that's just come up and you've had that aha moment, how would you like it? You know, how can I help you? And they will tell you. They will tell you, oh, well, I need to do this. I need to improve in this area. I'll obviously need more of X. I'll need to work harder in Y, but I'll really need to be held accountable. So if you could help me out with this X, Y, Z, they'll start talking, because after all, that is their cognitive dissonance. That is their problem in their mind. There is no way that we could even get as close to the resolutions needed as this person could. So it's not our job to fill that gap. Hence, we just ask them, how can I help? How do you want it to be solved? You just let me know. And then we listen, okay? Firstly, we listen to how the client would like to solve their problem. And we're listening for objections, and we're listening to the language that they're using, okay? And we're listening to, you know, what they're saying and how they will like it to be. And we're also listening to see if we are actually a fit. And I'll go through why that's important in a moment. Because they, you know, the customer could, you know, they've built this problem out now and they know exactly how it needs to be fixed. And we're listening for how that is. Also, in this step, once they've told you the ways that they want the problem to be solved, this is where we use a concept from Robert Cialdini, who wrote the book Influence, and this comes from this book, The Psychology of Persuasion, and it's essentially reverse engineering what you want to, you know, set in stone, or what you want to achieve. And what we really want here is for the customer to be completely 120% aware and assured that they know what, you know, that they they know how to solve this problem and they know what they're doing. So we use this technique called a reverse qualification to ensure that the customer's, making the right decision. So in terms of how they want their problem solved. And it goes like this. So we ask them why now. So we are presupposing that now it's going to happen if they go through and answer this question, and they'll tell you, I've been waiting for so long, I've been procrastinating, these are my dreams, I need to get onto them, etc., etc. You then ask them, why me? Why do you want to work with me? Again, presupposing that we will be working together, and also directing the customer's mind into, finding evidence as to why that's okay. All right. So it's important that we do that step because it really allows the customer to have it sink in for them. And then we have take ownership. This is the last step. At this point in time, we've done 6 steps and we haven't sold shit. We haven't even talked about our product. So now here's where we begin. Right at the end, this is where we begin to talk about it. And we do that by having listened to everything, all the steps that they would like to take to solve this problem that they have, right? At this point, we know if we're a fit or not. And so here's where we do the right thing by the client. If we are a fit to how the customer would like to solve their problem, we let them know that we've got that. We've got it. We can take care of that. That is something we can definitely help with in the way that you want help with, right? If that's the truth. And I'll explain what I mean in a moment. If you absolutely know that you can help this person in the areas that they want to be helped, and that you have the goods to get them there, then if you are a fit, advise them that, that's done. Like, we can take care of that. It's fine. I can take care of you. You have the means they seek to take care of them and achieve the results they desire. If you don't have the experience or you don't have the means, then I'm going to show you what to do next. But if you do, then tell them. And finally, when I say take ownership, ask them if it would be reasonable to invest X, however much your product is, to achieve the logical future outcomes they said they wanted. And this is around business. So, people tend to buy things that are going to give themselves a return on their own investment. So if you've explored the logical future expectations, you're usually going to, you would have touched on money, return on investment, that sort of thing. So you can literally say, would it be reasonable to invest $1,000 to achieve, $100,000 quarter? To move up, the numbers, it's pretty much a no-brainer. So when you ask them, would it be reasonable to invest your price X to achieve the future logic, whatever they said they wanted, okay? And every time that I've used this method thoroughly and allowed that customer to build out the cognitive dissonance thoroughly, okay, this is a no-brainer for the customer. And now, another point on this, do the right thing by the client, is that if you picture it from this way, if you have a hang up on money yourself, or you don't have belief in your product enough to ask them to invest $500, $600, whatever it is, so that they can achieve the results they've just come to know they want. If that's your hang up and you haven't done step 1 properly, and you get here, what's going to happen is that this customer's just built a cognitive dissonance. They know they've got a problem. Now they want to solve it. And you have just taken them through the exact process on how, allowing them to explore how they want it to be solved. If you don't do the right thing by the client and ask them to invest, they're now sitting in that 3% of that triangle, knowing they have a problem, openly wanting to purchase. And if you don't close the sale, you cannot guarantee that some other salesperson that doesn't follow this method and perhaps doesn't genuinely put the customer first is not going to speak to that person, close a sale, and we can never know what happens in that journey. But that's the risk we don't want to take. We don't want to risk having a customer, that we're genuinely giving a shit about, end up in the hands of someone who doesn't give a fuck. Okay? So that's why it's so important to park our preconceptions and what's going on, anything to do with us, so that we can do the right thing by the customer and close this off. All right? Because you don't want them to be going somewhere else with a new problem and a will to buy, and they end up in the wrong hands. Cool? Yeah, thanks, Bo. It makes so much sense, right? They've just built this out, and now they're looking. They're in that 3%. They're good to go. They've moved from the 50% of not knowing they had a problem to 3%, and they're ready. And if you won't sell it to them, someone else will. All right? Now, as I mentioned before, you may have listened to the client and the way in which they're wanting to solve their problem or get results. You have a feeling inside that it's genuinely not what you do, or you are not a fit. The reasons why doesn't have to be, they're not important. It may just be that you don't operate in that area, or you're not equipped or experienced enough to work in that area, whatever it may be. Okay? Genuinely, like, not making an excuse that, oh, nah, we're not a fit just because you don't want to ask them to invest. But if your means, if your service and product that you provide is not a fit to the means that they seek to achieve the results that they want, then let them know. Let them know that, and I've had to do this on a couple of occasions where I've done this whole process with somebody and told them, and had to refer them to another coach, because I don't specialize in the area of relationship coaching, for example. So I knew by listening to that person and how they wanted the problem solved, that I was genuinely, if I keep it 100, I wasn't going to be able to solve that person's problem, or I wouldn't do, if they brought 110% energy to the relationship, the business relationship, I knew that I could only bring 80, 90, because the other 40% I was going to have to use, studying and doing extra and putting extra energy into learning how to be with this person, because I didn't actually have the goods. So, as I mentioned there, where applicable, provide alternative recommendations, or, provide advice that may be useful. Maybe they don't need to pay for something. Maybe they just need to, rearrange what they have already. It really does depend. But the point here I'm trying to make is listen to how the client wants it solved. Keep it 100 and be honest with yourself. Do you have the goods, right? And are you a fit? If you are, tell them and close the sale and get stuck into business. And if you're not, then be honest, because if you don't do if you aren't a fit and you continue, yeah, Dave, so important to have a match and alignment. Bingo, absolutely. And here's why it's important to be a match and be in alignment. Because let's just say in the example where, I had a client that wanted to, this is for coaching, but where I did not specialize in relationship coaching. Let's just say if I knew that in my heart of hearts and in my bones that we weren't a fit, but I decided to close the sale anyway, because I knew what kind of energy they were, and I gave them a period of time and they loved it, and I closed the sale because I knew the code. If I'm not a fit to that client and we start working, it will become apparent that I didn't have the goods to close that sale, that I lied. So why in any world would I want to close that sale knowing that I can't deliver, or knowing that we're not going to be a fit? Why would I want to do that? Because that's only going to harm my brand in the long run. That's only going to tarnish my name. And yes, that is about me, but it's more about the client as well. They're paying for something that you never could have delivered, right? So it's just about being honest and really doing the right thing by the client. And so once it's closed, once you have, asked them, is it reasonable to invest, to achieve what they need to achieve, or whether you've provided them with a recommendation for another means or another avenue, that concludes and wraps up the sales conversation. Depending on their energy, you would give them a period of time, or you would, let them know that you will follow up. But this is where your D and your I energies will make the decision on the spot. So when you ask them, would it be reasonable to invest X to achieve Y? They will say, yes, how do we get started? Okay, if you have built out the cognitive dissonance, really, like if you've allowed them to build it out really well. Your S and your C energies, they will not close on the spot. So that's when you prescribe a period of time, or you listen to when the C energy says, oh, I'll just need to look into this XYZ, right? And you be okay with that, and you continue to follow up. So that, ladies and gents, is the consult method, the 7 steps to, taking care of everybody in the sales process. And what I'm really all about here is, if you weren't aware, this was my first time delivering this content, right? Delivering the sales training. So I'm really honored to have you guys on here hearing it for the first time from me. And, would it be cool with you guys if I send you a quick survey over the next week and for you guys to fill that out? It should take no more than 2 minutes. But I really just want to gather feedback so that I can put together, further webinars, but more importantly, my up-and-coming workshop, which I'll be holding. And I just want to get any feedback. Honored to be part of your first delivery. Yeah, thank you, Dave. Thanks for being here. So yeah, feedback, I love it, because that's how I grow. Like, I'm hungry to grow, and, any feedback at all, whether there be less swearing, more passion, whatever it is, I'm going to put together a quick survey, send it out, and I would love for you guys to help me out with that. As I mentioned at, somewhere during the webinar, if you're wanting to potentially continue this conversation and find out, now that you've seen the structure and you want to get into the how, and see how this could be implemented into your specific business, or you want to dig deeper into some of the things like DISC or, the cognitive dissonance, and building out those problems for people, just shoot me a message, and we can do a one-on-one consult, absolutely. So you all know how to find me. And lastly, if you're open to it, I would love to, as well as the survey, if you want to chuck your learnings into the community, the Keep It 100 and Do Better Business community, if you have any top learnings that you want to share with the group, that would be awesome. Awesome. So that's the webinar. And I really just want to say a big thank you to you all for taking the time out to honor yourself, your journey, and learn a little bit more about how you can grow, and also for being here with me on my first webinar. So it has been awesome. I've loved it, and I'm really looking forward to bringing this into a workshop space and doing further webinars. So, if that's also something that interests you, hit me up. We'll stay and connect. And yeah, let's just all rock on. But thank you so much for being here, everyone, and I will catch you guys in the community. Thank you very much.